Okay, so sometimes I can see the planet that you were on right before this one, but they're not giving that to me. They're saying it's not relevant for you because of how you feel about this one as well. So planets, stars, dark matter, all of it, comets, anything that's alive, technically alive within the universe, you have tried that out.
Okay. Oops.
So I feel like you're the type of person that is like, I'll try anything once. I just want to make sure I don't like it first. Because you're not somebody that looks at something and says, I don't like that. I feel like on occasion you will. Like if something looks really gross, you're like, ooh, I don't know if I want to try that just because it looks like it's going to be gross, like if you're thinking about food or maybe something that's just like a little bit too adventurous for you, you might shy away from. But generally speaking, you are totally open for trying anything once because that's how your soul is. You literally you have been every single thing that there is on Earth and extinct things as well.
That is so funny that she mentioned that I like to try things at least once. And with the food, I am quite adventurous. Even things that are a little bit like most, I would say like Westerners would be like, ooh, I don't know, I would eat that. But again, part of it maybe is upbringing, but also just food from different ethnic cultures. I've just always want to be like, you know what, I want to try it. The only thing I don't eat is like raw guts, I think. But I've had like, like intestines and liver and stuff like that, cooked though. But it's funny because maybe a few weeks ago I went grocery shopping with a friend and Trader Joe's, shout out to them. But it was just, I would always say like, oh, this is new. And then I would just put it in my cart. And then before you know it, my cart is full of like random stuff that I've never tried before. But so I just find it funny that she said that. And same thing when I eat out at a restaurant, I won't usually get the same thing. Most people get the same thing just because they know it's a thing they like. I usually get a different dish every time because why not? And same thing with traveling. I'll travel to another country because why not?
You've been here for a long time. Do you have like a thing with water? Like the ocean or pools or just swimming in general?
Excuse me. I am more of a beach bum than a hiking, nature, mountains in the woods type of person.
So showing me water for some reason. Like when you're at the beach, do you like go out in the water?
Yes, but I used to when I was on the East Coast, but now I'm on the West Coast and the water is freezing. So normally I would, Ooh. But here, I moved here and I was like, no one warned me that the water was cold. So it's just...
I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm on the East Coast and I have no idea.
Yeah, so originally I'm from Virginia. And so, Virginia Beach is like warm, but I guess the water on the West Coast comes from Alaska and it has to be a really hot day, like 100-degree day for me to be able to walk. But yeah, normally I would, yes. Yeah.
You would normally?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to see what they're trying to tell me with this water stuff. I'm seeing you as a sailor. Okay. So, I feel like it wouldn't freak you out to know that, like, a lot of your human past lives actually have been male. Like, you prefer that, just because it makes things easier for you. At least it did in the past. I mean, now things are different. Women are not in the same light as they used to be, like things are a lot easier for women than they ever were before. So of course your soul would be like, I definitely want to come in as a woman now. Like I want to experience that liberation, that freedom of being female and still being able to do everything that I was able to do as a male in past lives. So they're actually showing me a lot of your past lives where you had a lot of strength and leadership and kind of like this, like working your way up kind of thing. Because as the sailor, they're showing like, I don't know what it was, but you had to leave your family young for some reason. I think maybe they were poor or something. And there was a ship that needed like workers, and they were like, well, you can come and you can work for us, but you have to stay with us. Like, you have to do what we tell you to do in order for us to take care of you. So you were kind of like a grunt. Like, you started as that. And you were fine with that because that was better than like being on the streets begging for food, possibly getting arrested. You just were like, okay, we're going to do this. But it was really dangerous. And you kind of saw that as the better option. Like, I know I'll be a little bit more comfortable, even though it's a little scarier, but I kind of like that adventure again, like, you know. And I see you still having that same heart to help people. And what you kind of did was like systematically in this ship that you were on, like you made every single person love you. Like, they were like, we cannot get rid of him. He needs to stay. Like, people, and like, so the type of worker that you were on this ship, like, you would be the last one to get food, like you'd get scraps, like you were just there. Like, it wasn't a good existence necessarily, but it was better than what you would have had. Anyway, I'm kind of seeing where you like won everyone over, and it actually ended up where like people would be like giving you things because they liked you so much that they didn't want to see you do that. But like, it's so funny because it was like on the down low. So like, at first anyway, like nobody really knew that everybody, like, you had this like little stash of stuff that everybody was giving you because you got everybody to love you. And it wasn't to get stuff. That was kind of like the bonus. You were like, oh, this is great. Like, I'm so happy that everybody loves me this much. It was more so like, you knew that when people respect you and get along with you, that greases the wheels just for a better day, like a better time. Anyway, I see you working your way up through the ranks of this particular ship very quickly. You learned the ropes really quickly. You were very good at what you did. Your captain was like super surprised at how good you were because you were like a little nothing when you started. So they're wanting to show that because of how you're kind of doing that. Like, you started your thing from like kind of nothing and you're making it something. And they want you to know that you actually have that in you. This is something that you've done a few times, actually. Started from nothing and worked your way up and made something of yourself. I'm seeing businesses that you had in your past lives, schemes, things like that. Not schemes as far as like taking advantage of people, but like hustling as far as barter systems.
Okay, so 2 things. First, it's so funny when she said you got things from people and you had a little stash. At my last job, most of the jobs I've had for the past, I don't know, like at least 10 years or something like that. I got along with, I'd say, like most people. I try to be diplomatic, but as a result, I think people would always be like, oh, hey, we just ordered these snacks, you can have some. Or like, hey, I brought you this because, people quickly learned that I really love food and I love eating. So I think they just thought of me, they associate Trang equals likes food. And so they would always give me sometimes like, oh, here's something, like that. And so when she said that, now I just laugh at it. I was like, yeah, I would have a stash of like snacks in my drawer at work or things, or people would like email me being like, hey, so there's leftover stuff from our team meeting, you want to get some? So that's kind of funny. And then the second thing is about the boss being impressed from me being a little grunt worker. And this is the part where I'm just like, for all people who are in management positions or like hiring people right now, I'm like, sometimes give the little person a chance because you have no idea how much those hard workers can surprise you. And sometimes all we need is just a chance. And that's it, really. But sometimes, unfortunately, the world does not work that way because a lot of people in management or leadership don't view things that way, or they are very specific about hiring requirements and experience, and that's another topic.
Do you remember years ago, it was like the paperclip thing where like somebody had a paperclip and they traded it and they got like...
And eventually they traded for things, eventually wound up with a car. They worked their way up. Yeah, I remember that.
Exactly. So very much like that. You would do things like that. And so I feel like the leadership aspect that they're pointing to and sort of like this resourcefulness that you have from when you were a sailor are kind of like combined in this lifetime. And this is like the perfect recipe for you to have success now. I feel like that's something that is meant for you in this lifetime if you want it. Of course, everything that we have and we set ourselves up to choose what we want. And I mean, clearly this is what you want because you've already started your own business. But I feel like you do have an affinity for the water specifically just because of that. Like you fell in love with it. You respect it. It's vast. Again, it's like this big, huge thing that you would love to understand. So I feel like that's why you're drawn to the beach, because of the water aspect from that lifetime and other lifetimes like that one. Okay. Do you have any specific questions on anything?
Here's a random one, I guess.
Yeah.
What in my past life, I'm assuming is from past life, why I don't want kids. I don't know if you touched in this lifetime, like, at all. And I don't know if it's something that you touched on where, like, I've been animals and plants in the past, and I'm just seeing, like, too many humans are on the earth now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot like that. It's funny because I had, like, a little inkling of that when I was talking about the, like, the virus thing. Like,
humans are virus.
Yeah. But really what it is you have this very strong independent nature about you. And from all the past lives that I'm seeing, because they're giving me little flashes of things here and there, your independence is actually really, really important for you. I feel like it's not that you don't like children. Like, it's not really that. It's more of like, I don't want to have that responsibility. Like, I don't want to have something holding me back. So that's why this partnership that you have, like, they can't be holding you back in any way, shape, or form, because then it's going to feel like a child. Like, I have to parent you now. Like, I have to come behind you and make sure that you're doing things. Like, I'm not your boss, I'm not your mom. Like, this is not what we're doing.
And also, like, in this lifetime, why I have a big urge to travel a lot.
I feel like it's the thing in your soul where you're like, I want to have the experiences. The reason why you will come in as anything, male, female, plant, animal, whatever, organism, even bird, I don't care. Like, I will do anything just so I can have that experience. And so for you, it's the traveling aspect is so much in that vein of like, there's so much world for me to absorb and experience. And especially now, things now are as they never have been before. Technology has made so much of our world accessible, and things that you probably would never have been able to experience in any of your past lives are now possible. And so your soul is craving that experience. I don't want to miss out on what we're doing right now. And it's not necessarily like about the technology itself. It's what the technology gets you. like being able to go to any country, being able to go and experience authentic things, like cultural things, like having the experience, being in those environments, I feel like your soul knows that it will change you. So that's why. And, the kid thing is tied in with that as well, because you can't really travel if you have children. I mean, you can, but it's so much harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I just had a few more questions.
Yeah.
There's I don't know if this is a question for past life, but it's like, what main lesson was I meant to learn in this life, or lessons? And if I have any self-limiting things from my past into this life, and how can I release them, or what can I do to kind of take care of them, or the challenges that in this life, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, what was that first thing again? I'm sorry.
It was, what lesson did I come here? I don't know if that's a past life type of question.
Well, okay, so a lot. Remember I was telling you about that long list that you decided to come here for?
My ambitious list.
Your soul's very ambitious. Sometimes they'll give me something, so okay, so here's one, and it kind of is wrapped into that other question a little bit, I'm kind of seeing, but I'm going to answer it this way first. So I'm seeing control, releasing control, and when people say that, I feel like a lot of times they think oh, I'm not a controlling person. And I don't think you're a controlling person. You're not trying to control other people necessarily. However, you really enjoy having control over your circumstances, your environment. You need to know what is going on, so then you know what you need to do in order to make things run smoothly. So you like that sense of adventure, a little bit of chaos, a little bit of drama, but also maybe it could be controlled, because that would be better. But your soul is no, we need to flap in the wind, because amazing things happen when chaos is introduced. But that's really uncomfortable for you in this lifetime particularly. You're really trying to orchestrate your circumstances to make sure that you're comfortable. And we don't always we never have control over our circumstances.
As a planner type of person, this is really difficult to do. And I know my other planner friends would feel the same way too.
If you really think about it. So I feel sometimes when things seem out of control, that's really, it's triggering for you. So when people come along and they throw a wrench in whatever it is that you're doing, that's really, you're not happy with that. You're not really wanting that at all. So I feel you try to minimize that as much as possible. And what the universe is trying to get you to do instead is actually release your hold on controlling those things. And when chaos shows up for you, releasing that to the universe, asking the universe to help you through it so that you can see what it is all for. When we're uncomfortable, that's when we change.
Just a note that I like her style of reading, where, especially with past lives, I feel like past life or Akashic Records reading, or anything actually most readings, that you could say things that could damage a person. Especially when, say, for example, in a past life, you were an evil person, so you can, in this life, this is going to haunt you, and that's why you're going to have a difficult life for the rest of your life. That's an extreme example, but an unethical reader, if they say that, I can guarantee you the client is going to come out of that session not feeling good and feeling really disempowered, and also feeling cursed, whereas with her style, obviously, I really like the fact that she gives very ways to how to look about it. And when she said, in being able to, because most people say let go, and you're just all right, how? But she kind of gives more of a guidance of when this happens, release that to the universe. And you'll see later on that she also explains, gives a good example of for example, like, let's say something last minute plans change, but you never know what that's going to lead you into something like amazing, you know? So kind of like being able to give the grace. Actually, you know what? I'll stop talking and let you guys listen in.
People don't change when they're comfortable. They just don't sit in the normal thing over and over again. And certain people will isolate themselves to create that sense of comfortability. So I feel like the universe, especially now, is trying to push you outside of your comfort zone with that, giving you scenarios where they're trying to get you to release control. I feel like in past lives, you have had that sense of control. Like when you were the leader of this native community, you had all the control. Now, it didn't go to your head. That's the thing. Like, you're not one to take control and abuse that ever. You have a really good heart, and you really do try to make sure that things are fair. I feel like having that from that past life specifically, but also others. Okay. So they're showing me some actually female past lives now where you did not have control. I'm actually seeing one in particular where you were a female amongst many siblings in a household, a family that was not completely affluent, but like, I think what we would consider middle class. So you weren't poor, but you weren't rich either. So it was kind of just like your parents had a lot of children to help out with the family. And you kind of got like lost in the sauce there. Right in the middle, female, your father didn't really pay much attention to you. Your mother was busy with the children. And you felt really powerless in that lifetime to accomplish anything or do anything, because your soul is ambitious. I want to do things. I want to create. I want to have. Well, you lived in a society that said that females cannot do anything without a male or the mother or whatever. Like, you'd have to go with the family. You wouldn't be able to do anything on your own. And you felt really trapped in that. That one in particular was really rough for you. I feel like you wanted to do something like construction, something with buildings, whether it was design or putting them together. You were a little bit of a tomboy in that one. Like, you just really wanted to do things that were not of your gender. And that was very frustrating for you. So basically your whole life, you felt very powerless because you did not have control over what you were allowed to do. So I feel like especially that's why in this lifetime, as a female, they're getting you to try to release that sense of control, like that want for control, that kind of like desire to like, I need to make sure that things are comfortable for me so that I can accomplish what I want to accomplish. So there's a sense of that with that. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that needs to be released. Are you close with your family? Because I feel like there's at least one family member in particular that is an uncomfortable relationship.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. I was wondering what my past life with my brother was, and also my ex-boss, my former boss, who was abusive to me.
Okay, so let's look into your brother. What's your brother's name? Just
like legal name or American?
No, his first name is fine.
Okay.
Okay. So your relationship with him, I was looking into the cord between the two of you, and it's like dark colored and like kind of I don't know how to explain this. Like, it's not smooth. Like the cord between you, the soulmate cord between the two of you looks like there's knots in weird places. Like there's frays in certain areas. Like it just looks difficult. And when I see this, your guides are giving you the indicator that him in particular, you have joined forces, if you want to say, as souls to help push you through your lessons. So basically, he's in your life to trigger you over and over and over again, as much as possible, to make you as uncomfortable as possible so that you will change. They're telling me, you've had a lot. You've had about 33 past lives with him. So it's a long-standing connection that you guys have where the usefulness of your connection is in the triggering. So this is how you guys have decided to come in for each other. So I do feel like you trigger him as well, whether you know that or not. I feel like he doesn't really show that to you. He doesn't, he will put on a good front and make it seem like he doesn't care. But then, when he leaves, he is, fuming. And he can't stand it.
I'm very surprised because my brother is very, 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 very quiet person.
Having a relationship with him is not necessary. Carrying on a close relationship with him, I don't know if that's not something that would be, beneficial to you at this point in your life. So I feel like there's some guilt around that for you, because he's family, you should have a relationship with him.
I used to have guilt, but no, actually, probably more of anger. But when you get older and you do a lot of inner self work, well, you'll see it come up actually. You learn that leaving unhealthy relationships or out of your life is completely a-okay. And just a reminder for any of you guys listening in, if you have any toxic people in your life, it is very okay to put boundaries, cut them off if you need to. Sometimes families, it's tough because with family, it's they are the ones that are likely to push your boundaries. So, and also another note I want to make about this, about just in general past life reading, is I can see how some people that might not seek medical help, instead, sometimes people go into just spirituality as a way to heal and just cope with things, when in reality, sometimes, for example, we don't grow up with the best childhood sometimes, or the best parents, or the best environment. And at the Happy Healing Shop, Maria and I always want to reiterate and stress that, there's no, there's crystals, there's tarot, you can see a psychic every month, but really what you should be doing to help cope with maybe past traumas and all that kind of stuff is also see, for example, a therapist to be able to process those emotions and put them in place, and just do a lot of the inner work that way as well, instead of seeking things like tarot readings or psychic readings. I hope that makes sense. But anyways, or so I can see how a past life reading, people can take it away and say oh, well, I'm this way because I was this in a past life. It's okay, sure, you're in a past life, but you're living in this life right now, and you need to address the problems that happened in this life as well. So that's something I do want to stress, and want to make sure for any of you viewers going in to kind of think about that before diving only into the metaphysical world to get healing done, when I think it should be complementary to seeking medical professional help
to some degree, but that's also a choice. And if you choose to not have a relationship, you're actually saving yourself your energy so that you can carry on your own life in a higher vibration.
Yep.
So you want to make sure that you're looking at it that way. But there is a reason for that connection to be so uncomfortable. And it was more so in your early life than it is now.
Yeah. And then
and then the boss. Yeah. What's the boss's name? This is new. I'm not seeing very many past lives with her, actually. They're saying like it's like one or two. Her thing, I feel like, is not you specifically. I feel like this is she does these behaviors to a lot of different people. Like she's not singling you out because she's going through a lot her own self, and she doesn't know how to process that emotionally. I feel like she's actually a pretty young soul, and young souls don't know how to process their emotions yet. Emotions are kind of like really difficult for people that have never been on a planet like this one. There's a lot of other planets, like in different parts of the universe, where the vibration is so high that they don't really deal with a lot of lower vibrating emotional issues. Mm-hmm. But as humans, we're connected with the earth, which is a lower vibration, but we're also connected to our higher self and our guides, which is a high vibration. So we're constantly fluctuating through these emotions, and it's really difficult for new souls to, it's like the worst, like a roller coaster ride from hell, basically. And so they just have to try to figure out how to get used to it. And that's what's happening with her. She doesn't know how to regulate these emotions, and she's making other people responsible for how she feels. Like, you triggered me, it's your fault. No, that's not how this works. You triggered me, now I need to ask myself why. Why am I so bothered by what you did? I feel like to some degree you are in tune with that. You generally don't keep people responsible for them triggering you. Usually you're trying to understand what happened there. But yeah, no, with her, it's, she hasn't been here very long, so she has no idea what she's doing. So I wouldn't take anything that she does personally. I would say anything that would happen as a result of her would be an opportunity for you to grow. So when she does trigger you, it's an opportunity for you to be like, okay, why did she trigger me? Like,
okay, well, thank goodness I don't work in that toxic environment anymore. And I remember like what my grandpa told me in the afterlife. You can't grow no matter what company it is if you're like a flower in poisoned soil. Like, you have to move your environment. You know, anyways, so it's interesting hearing like, and it kind of makes sense from a spiritual sense, I guess, when she's describing that young souls have a hard time emotionally processing it. I also like to include from more like a earthly point of view of also a lot of times bullies mistreat people because they probably didn't have the best childhoods either growing up. Most of us haven't. So that is also something to consider. And the reason I want to say this is because I don't want people to use like spiritual readings and say like, well, I'm this way because I was told I'm a young soul or things like that. It's like, no, that you probably grew up also with not the most stable or warm household, and that could also be the reason why you kind of are who you are today.
Why does that thing that she did bother me so much?
And then I think those are all my questions. Oh, and also, yeah, it was, I think, another thing is when I spoke with my grandpa, with Maria, he also said the lesson that we learned, because Maria and I met at in that abusive environment, and that's how eventually we started the Happy Healing Shop like a year later. But the lesson we learned, it was a painful lesson, but learning to speak up for ourselves, and not being oppressed. And I think for that I have I guess like I just had now just a curiosity question. So
yeah.
When people come to you for a past life reading, obviously I came more of like, I just want to see what it's like. But for some people, is it, I guess I say, what is the most rewarding readings for you where you're like, oh, they can see why they're repeating patterns versus like or like they're afraid of drowning with no reason. Now they can understand they're drowning. Like what? Like I guess would have been like really fulfilling. So my reading is technically over at this point, but I am so glad that she allowed me to chit chat with her, just my regular curiosity questions, just because I want to get some more information for you guys. So I'm really appreciative that she did this, and I had such a wonderful time talking to her. So I hope this following information here helps you all.
I would say when people come to me and there's like something about them that has always been and doesn't make sense. So like, for instance, one time I had this one woman come to me and she's like, I'm an alien. Like, I don't feel like I belong here. And it was because the last place that she lived, her soul was so in love with the star that her planet orbited. Like her soul was just loved that. And she actually stayed there until the star died. And so she kind of came here, and it felt more like a rebound planet, which I don't know why you would pick Earth as the rebound planet, but that's what she did. So anyway, for her, it just felt like wrong. Like, I don't really belong here kind of energy. And it's because she still was longing for that other place that she lived. And things like that. Sometimes people don't understand why they have an affinity for something. Sometimes people, especially relationships, like when you have a difficult relationship and you're not really understanding why, like what is the purpose of that? Sometimes it's something specific that they've done in a past life. Like you and your brother, it's more of like a long-standing contract that you have with each other to make sure that you're both growing. Whereas some people, it could be where they had one particular past life where they were betrayed by that person and they're still working through that. So those types of things I think are my favorite, when I can help people understand that.
When you say they're betrayed by someone and they're still processing and working through it, is it more of like in a past life they didn't heal from it, and because they died still having, like, let's say resentment and grudge, the next life they'll be like, you know what, there's like that lingering. Okay. Just so like...
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. So...
And this is why I say work on yourself so you don't learn the lessons in this life, and that way you don't have to repeat in the next life and the next life and the next life.
Typically that's what it is. Like, either they were betrayed in death, which case you have zero time to process that, and then when you come into the next life you've completely forgotten about it, and it's still working itself out over lifetimes. Or they become so bitter over the betrayal that they're never actually able to release it in that particular lifetime. So they're giving themselves time to, in subsequent lifetimes, to release that. So that person will actually show up a couple times in their life, either in a significant way or, just popping in to remind you, like, hey, you still have this thing that you need to release. Like, let's do that. It just depends on how intense the emotion was and how rooted it is. That, sometimes it could take 5 or 6 lifetimes for them to fully release it completely, to really be able to let go. Now, if they have a more spiritual lifetime, they're going to be more capable of releasing that. Because usually spiritual people are constantly aware of, like, okay, I need to release things that no longer serve me, generally. And so things like that will come up anyway.
And then for the person, like, that felt really out of place, because I hear that sometimes where people say, oh, I don't feel like I'm out of my skin on this planet, something like that. How does a past life reading, let's say they find out, okay, I fell in love with that planet, but after a reading, how would that help them if there's, I guess, change their perspective when they're just like, I feel out of place, now I know why I'm out of place, but they will still feel out of place. So how does it help to cope, I guess?
I feel like what you can do with that information is, prior to the reading, you have no idea why you feel this way. after the reading, usually they'll feel like, oh, well, now I understand why I have this feeling. And so instead of feeling that way, feeling bad about feeling that way, I can take action to try to make more of an effort to integrate into this current existence that I'm in. So their whole perspective changes, and then they start thinking things and processing things in a whole different way through a lens of like, okay, I feel more connected with this other star or whatever, but like, it's almost like she was able to kind of see it as like an old relationship and allow herself to kind of let it go. Like, you know how people do like inner child work?
Yep.
It's sort of like that, where you allow yourself to revisit that either past life or, other thing that you were in the universe, and like kind of allow your soul to say goodbye to that or make peace with it or whatever it is. And sometimes people will sit with that for a couple days, a couple weeks, even sometimes a couple months, just to allow themselves to kind of release whatever it is that needs to be released or integrate whatever needs to be integrated. So just being aware of the reason behind certain things actually will be very healing and freeing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was great. And there you go. Now you know what a past life reading looks like. I personally really enjoyed talking to Carolyn and have enjoyed her energy, her vibe, and also the way she communicated and interpreted the information that she was given. There are two things I actually pay attention to in readings, and that's one, the ethics of the reader, and two, the level of interpretation. Because in the spiritual metaphysical world, you can get images, you can get sounds and messages, but a lot of times they can be metaphorical. And the more experience you have, the better you are at communicating and interpreting what needs to be said to the client. So let me know in the comments below, what did you think about it? And what type of questions would you have asked? To book a reading with Carolyn, check out the link down below. And finally, if you'd like to learn more about past lives, soul contracts, and more, check out our site at thehappyhealingshop.com where we teach more about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.